Day 473 of doing a LeetCode problem every day until I get a job. All right, y'all, we're back again another day, another LeetCode problem where we're doing daily LeetCode problems. And today we have question number 2348, number of zero-filled subarrays. The difficulty level is medium, but don't worry because you already know we're going to keep the solution as simple and easy to understand as possible. But before we get started, y'all, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And if you need any new Apple AirPods, go ahead and check out that link in the description so you can get you some. Now let's see what the question says. Given an integer array nums, return the number of subarrays filled with 0. A subarray is a contiguous non-empty sequence of elements within an array. Alright, y'all, so that sounds simple enough, but let's go ahead and take a look at these examples anyway just to make sure that we are doing this problem correctly. So in example 1, we have our input nums equals an array of integers 1, 3, 0, 0, 2, 0, 0, 4. The output is 6. So let's take a look at this explanation to see how we got this output from this input. So the explanation says there are 4 occurrences of 0 as a subarray. There are 2 occurrences of 0, 0 as a subarray. There is no occurrence of a subarray with a size more than 2 filled with zeros. Therefore, we return 6. So let's break this down one step further. As we can see, we have 4 zeros. So each 0 is its own subarray for 1. Well, first, let's go over what a contiguous non-empty sequence of elements means. Contiguous means we just have elements in a row. So since we have 2 zeros in a row right next to each other, that's contiguous. As you can see, we have 2 zeros right here, 2 zeros right here. If all of these zeros were connected, it would be contiguous as well. But since there's a 2 right here, then these 2 subarrays are not contiguous. They're just 2 separate subarrays. But these 2 zeros are contiguous. These 2 zeros are contiguous. These 4 zeros are not contiguous because there's a 2 in the middle. But if the 2 was gone, then they would be contiguous as well. So each 0, back to the explanation, each 0 is its own subarray. So that's a 0, that's its own subarray, that's its own subarray, that's its own subarray, and that's its own subarray. As you can see, there's 4 zeros. So since there's 4 zeros, we already have 4 subarrays. Boom. Then we also have this as a subarray. This is contiguous, right? There's 2 zeros in a row. So this is its own subarray. We count this separate from just the 1 zeros as well, similar to this subarray, which is 2 zeros. So we also have this subarray and this subarray that we can add to the 4 subarrays that we already have, which gives us a total of 6 subarrays. That's how we got 6. So just in case that didn't make sense, y'all, let's take a look at example 2. In example 2, we have our input nums equals an array of integers 0, 0, 0, 2, 0, 0. This time the output is 9. Explanation says there are 5 occurrences of 0 as a subarray. So once again, each 0 is its own subarray. We have 5 zeros, so we already at 5 subarrays. Boom. Then we have 3 occurrences of 0, 0 as a subarray. So we have a 0, 0 right here. That's one subarray. We have a 0, 0 right here. That's a separate subarray. And we have a 0, 0 right here. That's the third subarray, right? So now we have 5 plus 3 different subarrays that we're at 8 subarrays. But then there's one occurrence of a 0, 0, 0 with 3 zeros as a subarray, which is right here. So this is another subarray. So that we add that 1 to our 8. And then there's no occurrence of a subarray with a size more than 3 filled zeros. Therefore, we return 9. So once again, we have the 5 zeros. Then we have 3 subarrays with 2 zeros right here, and right here. And then we have 1 subarray with 3 zeros right here. And in total, those are 9 different subarrays. So let's take a look at example 3 where there are no subarrays, right? So in example 3, we have the input nums equals an array of integers 210 and 2019. The output is 0 because there's no subarray filled with 0. Therefore, we return 0. So keep in mind that this 2019 is one element, is one number. We're not going by digits. We're going by the whole element. So this value is not 0. This value is 2019. So we're not going to just count this 0. Similar with 10. we're not just counting this 0, it's the whole 10, which is not 0. So now that we understand the question, y'all, let's get into the fun part, the actual solution. Solution is actually not difficult at all. It's really simple to understand as well. So let's get into it. First thing we're going to do is we're going to declare a variable called counter. We'll set that equal to 0, and we're just going to use that to count all of the 0 values, right? So as you can see in this example, each 0 is its own subarray, right? So we're just going to create a counter to start. We're just going to create a counter that's going to count the zeros, right? So that will help us when we are counting our subarrays. Then we're going to declare a variable called ands, and that's going to store our output and store all the valid subarrays that we find that contain 0. So we can set that to 0 to start as well. Then we're going to say for, we're going to loop through the array by saying for i in 0 dot dot up to nums dot count. Boom. We're going to say if nums square bracket I equals 0, we're going to open up the brackets, right? Because remember, we're counting the zeros. So if nums I equals a 0, we're going to increment our counter by saying counter plus equals 1. So every time we see a 0, we're just going to add 1 to this counter. Boom. But we're not done yet, because that's just going to get us the zeros or the subarrays that only have 1 0. Don't forget, we still need to count the subarrays that have multiple zeros. So for that, we're going to come right here and we're going to say ands plus equals counter. So that's going to add every time. This is going to, if we see a streak of zeros, this is going to count the number of zeros that we see in that streak, and that's going to append that to ands as well. And then to break the streak, we're going to come right here and we're going to say else. We can say set counter equal to 0. So every time the streak breaks, we're going to reset the counter to 0 so we can start a new streak. So once again, so imagine if we're looping through the array, we go 0, that's going to count 1 0. Then we're going to come here, that's going to count 2 zeros. That's the streak. Then we come here, boom, that's not a 0, right? Because this is if nums I equals 0. So since we get to this 2 and it's not a 0, it's going to recount or reset the counter back to 0. So when we start back at this 0, we'll start the counter over from 1. Then we'll see another 0. Now put the counter at 2, right? So this is going to reset the counter for us. Then we just come right here and we can say return ands. Boom. That should be all she wrote, y'all. Let's give it a run. See how it runs. And it's accepted. So let's go ahead and submit it. Make sure it's still accepted after we submit it. And look at that, y'all. 0 milliseconds beats 100% of users. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'd like to see. So with that being said, y'all, I hope y'all learned something today. And I hope to see y'all here tomorrow for another day, another LeetCode problem. See y'all then.